G'day golfers. Well, we're on the putting green today and we're going to talk about the putting yips. Now thankfully this only afflicts a certain percentage of golfers. However, anyone that suffered from the putting yips will agree with me in saying that it's one of the most soul destroying things that any golfer can go through. So we've had a request from Douglas to cover this subject, and we've also got a case study that we're going to work with. One of my clients who has obviously suffered from the yips for quite some time, and just understanding this issue and what we did to help this golfer. I'm Glenn Haynes. Welcome to Aussie Golf Pros. Well, the missing of a short putt can be caused by many things. Poor alignment, poor green read, poor speed, or just a poor stroke. But if you're missing a lot of putts because of the putting yips, then you're going to stand over a lot of these short putts and actually believe that you're going to miss. So the putting yips has been defined as a loss of fine motor control skills with involuntary movement. And that's not entirely true. See, the putting yips is partly neurological and partly psychological. And depending on where on that scale you are, that depends on the individual. But there's definitely a self-sabotage going on there, especially if someone says, well, I have the yips, I've got the putting yips, and that's only going to exaggerate the issue, and then we start to believe that we've got the putting yips, and we can actually get into that mindset of waiting for it and even causing it. Putting yips generally don't happen with a practice swing, a practice stroke. It's generally only at impact that we see that. And I've worked with plenty of golfers over the years that have had putting yips, and all of them, it's that twitch, that movement that happens at impact. So the neurological part of it, nerve damage if you like, those messages between your hands and your brain get a little bit damaged through continued misses of short putts, and then that can exaggerate the issue where the player actually starts to believe that it's going to happen. There is some history, some damage history there, and the player expects it to happen. But the psychological aspect, that's more of a performance anxiety, and that's why we see it mostly on short putts, where the player expects to hole these putts and they feel like they should, and they put more pressure under themselves, and that's when those putting yips can really start to manifest themselves more. Obviously it can happen on longer putts, but the shorter putts is generally where we see most of the putting yips. So here's an example, our case study with the yip. We can see there that it's quite a sharp movement. The putter is moving around quite a lot. The strike is off the heel in this case. And the putter face is very rapidly moving around from open, close to open. It's moving around a hell of a lot. Definitely not something that we can even learn to control. But you see how it happens at impact. So we're definitely going to see if we can get this player to focus on other aspects of the putting stroke, not just what's happening at impact. So first up, we wanted to get an idea of which hand was at fault here, which hand was causing this yip to happen. So we got the player to hit some putts just with the left hand and just with the right hand. And as suspected, the left hand had no issue in that it was a very smooth stroke. Okay, not full control because it's just one-handed, but definitely no yipping going on there. But we take the left hand away and put the right hand, so the bottom hand for this player, he's a right-handed golfer, and we can see that this is when the yip is really bad. The right hand is taking full control, and that's where that involuntary spasm is happening. So that's the true putting yip there. So ask yourself, which side of the brain is controlling which half? So this is a right-hand golfer, so the left side of the brain is controlling the right hand. That's the creative side. Not the logical side. The logical side of the brain is controlling the left half, and we see that's not an issue. So it's that creative type, that creative side of the brain that's, I guess, creating those scenarios where the player is really concerned that this is going to happen, and then it manifests itself and it does happen. So this is really key in what we're going to come up with as a treatment to see if this player can get rid of the putting yips. We now realize that it's the creative side of the brain and it's the right hand. And we can see over the years that tour pros have come up with some different grips to try to alleviate themselves of the putting yips. Players like Arnold Palmer and Bernhard Langer, where they've really tried lots of different putters and lots of different ways of holding the putter to get rid of the putting yips. And the reason that they do that is because when you have a physical change like that, you are, in theory, alleviating yourself of that history, the history of yipping, so that any form of different physical putting action has the opportunity of helping that player to reset and start all over again. Now obviously it's trying to find the right grip for that player, and there's no guarantee that it's not going to come back. However, we do what we can. I think the first port of call for a lot of golfers that have the yips, and if they identify that it's the bottom hand, the right hand that's causing it, then I suggest you start with a cross-hand grip. Starting with a cross-hand grip so that the bottom hand is now the left hand, and that might be able to get that player more in control of the putting action and get you, if you're suffering from the putting yips, a different hold on the putter grip and being able to almost pull through that putting stroke with that left hand. So we're just changing things up a little bit, but also getting the left hand for a right-hander to have more control over the stroke. It's not for everybody, of course, but that's the first port of call. For anyone that has the putting yips, the first thing I'm going to say to them is identify which hand is the issue, and if it is the bottom hand, the right hand, then switch them around. And that's going to go a long way towards a first step to getting rid of those putting yips. Now, as I said earlier, we're really interested in the fact that it's at impact that it happens. Always at impact, this involuntary movement, this spasm. So what I want you to do, if you're, in fact, any putter, any golfer out there is going to benefit from this. I want you to focus more on your finish position rather than impact. And that's where all the focus is for a lot of putters. They're focusing on what's happening impact, they're watching the ball, and if they're not getting through that ball properly, then we're going to see differences in speed and differences in line, because we're getting ball bound. We're focusing very much on what the putter is doing at impact. And we're even trying to square it up at impact. And there's so much focus on the putter face and our hands and the ball, everything at impact. And for a lot of golfers, you're going to benefit very much from trying to get away from that ball bound habit. And that's not just for putting either. So, but let's stick to putting for today. So what I want you to do is have a look at your putting stroke on video and see where you finish. It's probably going to vary quite a lot if you're a putting yipper, but what I generally see with a lot of golfers is that there's no set finish position. It changes. The follow through length, sometimes it comes over here, sometimes around here, sometimes the putter really closes a lot, sometimes it doesn't. There's a lot of inconsistency with that finish position, the follow through, but also there's no stable finish position. So what I mean by that is that the player doesn't stay there. They recoil a lot or come back, finish up over here or over here. There's no set finish position. There's no process to what's really important, which is holding that finish position. If you watch a lot of the top putters on tour, Jordan Spieth's a great example, Jason Day another one, Tiger Woods, they hold that finish position for a couple of seconds. They're committing to the putt. This is really important from a mental aspect, is now they're not worrying about what's happening impact, they're focusing very much on that finish position, and for most good putters, that follow through is the same length as the backswing, or near as damn it. Holding that finish position is so, so key for your commitment, for your speed control, and for your consistency. And that's what I see with a lot of golfers that suffer with the putting yips, is there's no holding of the finish there. Let's hold that finish position. Cross hand's really not my thing. I'm a bit of a claw grip putter myself, but let's have a go cross hand and hold the finish. There we go. That stability is really going to stand you in good stead for a smoother stroke, for more consistency with your speed control and your putting line. So let's get back to our case study. What did we do? Well, I suggested for this player, quite a tall player, that a very short putter is a good idea, because that can help that player bend over a little bit more and get more of a pendulum action and start to activate some bigger muscles in that pendulum action. With any player that stands a little bit taller, it's very easy to get handsy through the putting stroke. So this has really helped this player, and what he found on his own was going the opposite to what a lot of instruction suggests, which is a light grip. He found that that made the putting yips more prevalent, so we've gone with a much tighter grip than would be normal. And this has really helped this player to reduce the incidences of putting yips, in fact almost to the point where it's pretty much gone. He decided not to go with the crosshand grip at this stage, although it's still something that he's experimenting with. But you can see here that he's producing a much smoother stroke now, much smoother action, and he's holding a lot more putts. And of course, he's very happy with the progress that he's making in that he has a lot more control over the putter face and his speed control just by going through those three processes. So you can cure yourself of the putting yips by going through this process. Step 1, hit some one-handed putts with each hand and identify which hand is causing your involuntary movement through the putting stroke. Step 2, try some different grips. Utilizing that information, you can come up with a grip that is more comfortable for you and that can help you alleviate yourself from this affliction. Step 3, hold that finish position. Regardless of how poor your putting stroke might feel or look, keep focusing on trying to hold that finish position. Even if you do yip, even if you do miss the putt, if it's a poor crummy stroke, get into the habit, get into the process of holding that finish position as steadily as you can, despite the fact that it might not be as great as you want when you hit the ball. Focus on that finish position, and that's really going to help you to not only cope with what you're going through, but also to hit a lot better putts and control your distance much more easily. And step 4, and probably the most important, is self-talk. Watch what you say to yourself. Don't ever say to yourself, I've got the putting yips. The more times you say it, remember you are listening to yourself, the more times you say it, the more chance you have of yipping a putt and the longer you're going to suffer from this affliction. So say things to yourself like, I love putting, I'm improving my putting, I'm focusing on the process and I'm getting better all the time. You can frame it in the positive. Now that might sound silly to you, but you'll remember you're listening to everything you're saying. You're your own caddy, so it's really, really important the words that you choose, especially when you're on the putting green. Well, thanks for writing in, Douglas. We hope this video really helps you with your putting and any golfer that's out there suffering from the putting yips. If you like this video, then please smash that like button and comment below. What grip are you using to help your putting? We'd love to hear from all of you. Now, you can have the best putting stroke in the world, but if you're struggling with reading greens, then you're not going to hold many putts. So pop over to the video there and we've got a complete guide to helping you with your green reading. Are you the best golfer you can be?